Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name's StepsBasic, and welcome back to my community show. So, before we get started, remember? No, don't remember. Well, don't forget, but sorry I missed last week. We had a bit of an adventure. 1 second. Last week, we got ourselves a little kitten. I know I've introduced her already in a Borderlands video, but this is little Zip Tie. Say hi. Alright, scamper, play, have fun. But yeah, last week I missed because we were getting a new cat, and we loved her so much, and she's so cute. Yay. But anyway, apart from that, also, apologies for this last week. It's been a bit of a hectic week. For those who may not have seen the videos, I had a tree fall in my yard, and I was feeling a little and all that fun stuff. But I'm mostly taking care of the tree. I got another follow-up video coming up on that. But apart from that, we have continued in our playthrough of Borderlands. Got to play another I Need a New Job video, and of course, I'm still carrying on with 7 Days to Die. But apart from all that, that's about it for the announcements. So let's move into today's topic, which is me against myself. I know that's kind of a weird topic, weird idea. We're going to be reviewing one of my videos that I made a while ago, and I wanted to get in here and talk about it because of the simple fact that it was an interesting topic, and I kind of wanted to review what I had to say about it, as well as address a few of the comments, because, well, now I made this on my Babbling Beards channel back when I was still uploading over there with my buddy, and this was from a new series I was going to make called Why Do We, or I Have a Problem. I kind of changed up the topic and whatnot because it became more difficult to frame a question around why do we, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, or looking at today, is why do we like villains, which was a video I made. It was originally 12 minutes long, but because of what I did and how long it took to put together, I gave up on it. Hi kitty, I see you, I love you. I gave up on it, cut about half of it out, and yeah. So anyway, here we go. Why do we like villains?
So, I have a problem. Well, when I was younger, we started to see a lot of things going by. As far as heroes and villains, we saw these things very cut and dry, very black and white, but then we started to see things evolving into shades of gray, and our characters stopped being the strictly good, strictly bad stereotypes. We never...
And see, I love the way, like, this was strictly, it was like very PowerPoint style of a video, and I really liked it. I really liked working on it, and it was fun putting it together, and it was fun seeing it come together after a lot of work. But because of how long it was taking to produce, I gave up on it and cut it in half. But I really like the way, I like the humor in it. I like the way it starts off with I have a problem, and then go figure, big surprise, all that sort of stuff, because we all have problems. And I've always been fascinated by the idea of good and evil, good versus evil, in not only the real world sense, but in the aspect of looking at it in the realm of shows, video games, comics, etc. Because, as an adult, especially now, I can see that the world isn't cut and dry, it isn't black and white anymore. And without getting too philosophical, there's no such thing as true good, true evil, because we're all mixtures of each, and the idea of that has fascinated me. I mean, my love of philosophy and psychology kind of button heads in an interesting topic. Anyway, back to the video.
Ever had the handlebar mustache twirling black hats versus the ever valorous white hats anymore. And so
I like that picture because I was like, I need to look for like a real world hero, and I'm like, I find this this cat from the Navy because I was in the Navy, and I like, yeah, oh, claws. Anyway,
This started to kind of breed a new kind of character, the bad guy, if you will. Things were different, things started to change, and our characters started to become deeper. Now, of course, this
I like that. Deeper. It's got a shadow underneath. I don't know. I'm too easily impressed by my own work.
isn't just something that has evolved now. This has existed for as long as writing has, and many people have created the anti-heroes and the sympathetic villains. Our
I like that. That's symbology. I swapped them.
cultural acceptance and even appreciation for these types of characters has changed and
I flipped it.
evolved in the years. Now, if you look at things, older stuff, like, say, the Odyssey and the Iliad,
It's censorship head.
featuring our plucky heroes from Greece attacking Troy because Troy decided to steal the wife of a king.
Yep.
Now, this is, some would argue, one of the best instances of anti-heroes and sympathetic villains. Of course, more modern interpretations would be people like Batman versus people like Lex Luthor.
Oh, yeah. See, I like the idea of Batman versus Lex Luthor because, ow. Because Batman is very much an anti-hero. He's not in it for the glory, not in it for the greater good. Just the idea of justice at any cost, except of course for the lives. He doesn't want to take any lives. But then there's Lex, who is arguably a sympathetic villain in that he seeks to unite humanity against the dangers of otherworldly people like Superman himself. And of course, seeing Superman as a potential threat to the world is not that far-fetched. And funny enough, but I chose those two, Batman and Lex, because they share the same idea, but they go about it in different ways. So Batman doesn't trust that Kal-El will stay human, as it were. Ow. And same with Lex. They don't trust Superman because Superman has so much more power than anybody else on the planet can even hope for. And I thought that was a good dichotomy because they share a common interest or a common belief, but they also, go about it in different ways. I.e., Batman monitors and, keeps an eye on him, and Lex, particularly, it takes a more interventionist method.
And the aspects within these characters that create a more deep meaning behind them. The anti-hero, the person who does good but doesn't want to do good, as it were. It's not...
The anti-hero, I feel like I may not have been as clear with that idea as I meant to. Like the anti-hero, I've talked about Joel from The Last of Us being an anti-hero in that he has this goodness thrust upon him, whereas he is arguably a very bad person. And so having the badness pushed aside so he can do this good, is not necessarily exactly what defines the anti-hero, i.e. the anti-hero it may still be a very good person, but they may not portray the ideals of goodness, i.e. always polite, always kind and everything. That sort of thing. But of course, we've had straight up villains become good guys in modern retellings and whatnot, and the whole redemption arcs and everything. That'll be a topic for another video at another time. Don't chew on my headphone cord. I need those. So cute, but stop it.
so much a matter of I'm doing good for goodness sake. I'm doing what I think is right for the sake of the world, as it were. And
Right, see?
Batman goes about doing his thing in a violent and brutal manner. But even in the Batman character, we have seen an evolution from what was considered wholesome and good, i.e. Adam West, versus even in my time, Michael Keaton Batman, which was the Dark Knight. We saw the palette swap from blues and purples to blacks and grays. inappropriately, we saw
I like that. It was a good shift. I'm so clever with my shifts and stuff. I'm so proud of myself.
the attitudes of the character change from weird comedy to dark broody. Same thing happened with Superman, where we saw the wholesome truth, justice, and the American way shift into the more edgier version that we see in Superman Returns and Justice League and Batman vs. Superman. We see this character.
See, he's still very much the truth and justice type of guy, but like especially I think it was Man of Steel where he actually killed Zod, and it's like that kind of violates all of the original principles and whatnot. And he also loses a lot of the corniness from the older style of Superman. Hi. But at the same time, he gains a more realistic human appearance and appeal.
Go from being the perfect being to a struggling human.
And
therein lies the crux of the idea of why do we like bad guys. And when we look at the world like this, when we look at these universes created like this, we start to see that we like these characters because these characters are more human.
Ooh.
We've seen the shift gradually over time from that to where we are now, to the point where we see a lot less flaws in our good characters and a lot more flaws in our bad.
And that's a point that I really wanted to get into. Like when it comes to liking the bad guys in shows and movies and whatnot, is that they are more rounded. Like the enemies, the bad guys, are more rounded characters, and people are afraid to do anything that might portray the good characters as flawed anymore. Sometimes they do have flaws, but the flaw is like, oh, they're just too good. Yeah, that sort of thing. And like, especially with like Captain Marvel and whatnot. I'm going to let me go on and tell more in case I actually cover this.
Characters. We have much better, more sympathetic villains than we do heroes. We have characters who have started down the wrong path and have just lost their way and become what is known as the villain of a story, our antagonists. We have characters who have good goals but bad execution. Thanos gets his hands on this Infinity Gauntlet and he wants to set the world right by eliminating the deficit of resource to citizens. Thanos,
citizen minus resources equals badness,
could very much want to do what he wants to do because that is a good thing for the universe. However, the option presents itself as in...
Does itself have two S's? I don't think so, me. I think that's incorrect.
We have way too many people and not enough resources. And he sees, instead of the obvious double the resources, he sees half the population. And the best part about that is it presents Thanos as the villain. If, say, Thanos had gone the other way of doubling the resources rather than halving the people, nobody would be able to complain. But as we've seen this shift in characters, our villains becoming more flawed and more human and more sympathetic, and our heroes becoming less flawed and more heroic.
See, Carol Danvers and whatnot.
We've seen a lot of a shift from what we think of as what is the likable characters, because we start to see more relatability in our villains. Our heroes become distant gods while our villains become humans struggling to make their way.
Which is something we all can agree with. We all can sympathize with and empathize with and, understand.
In my opinion, this is a bad tactic in writing because you should always want your heroes, your protagonists, to be the better characters. You don't want people to like the people that your characters are supposed to hate.
Now, that's not entirely true because, in my opinion, I like a villain that is sympathetic, that you can kind of understand what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing. It's just the how that's the problem. And I think making dynamic characters for both sides, protagonist and antagonist, is actually a better tactic than, making flimsy characters on either side. But at the same time, you're not supposed to like the bad guys. Now, empathize with them, understand their point, yes, but like them, no.
I think part of it comes down to people's fear of, I don't know, creating a weak hero. The way a lot of writing is done.
Now, going to that topic, creating a weak hero is actually something I've enjoyed a lot of in my writing. Is making a hero that is not perfect makes for a more interesting hero. Like, say, you could have a battle of the gods with Hercules leading the charge, and he's your protagonist, and you're like, okay, big strong dude. He may not be on the same level as the gods, but he is super strong, super powerful. We are rooting for this guy. But on the other option, hi kitty, meow. But on the other side, having, say, a child who only has her intelligence to rely on when it comes to facing survival in the zombie apocalypse. She's not strong enough to fight off a zombie. She's not fast enough to get away from them. But she's smart enough to think her way around them. Adds a layer of interest to the story, not just to the character. That sort of thing.
For villains as opposed to heroes is we start to see much more in the way of what evil is and how it can take a good idea and a flawed person and turn it into a work of, well, evil.
I.e. the Thanos snap. You know, flawed person, good idea, end result is evil.
Ultimately, it boils down to this. The reason, in my opinion, that we like our villains is because they remind us most of ourselves. While our heroes become gods, far superior to anything mankind can ever hope to be, our villains become the humans that we know we already are. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Bye.
Bye. And I really like that. You know, I really like the topic because it's an interesting thought process, an interesting dive into the depths of psychology and and philosophy, mixing two of my interests. You know, the whole idea of why do we like our villains and whatnot. You know. But alright, let's go back to Vlogcam and let's address some of the comments. Now, I like this video because I put it up on the Babbling Beards and it is 3 views away from 600 views. 30 likes, no dislikes, 20 comments. I love this video because I put a lot of work into it, and to see it actually pay off in this way makes me proud because I have made I put a lot of work into so many different videos, but they often underperform compared to everything else. But this topic just resonated with people. And it's like we have a comment here from John Mark Kisedo. As they say, young ones look up to heroes and adults prefer villains. And this is, too true. As we age, we learn about nuance and life and growth. And we realize that heroes always seem to be lacking something, lacking that humanity that I was talking about. We have a person here named Heartbreak. When I was younger, I kind of liked the heroes because they did good for the people. But when I got older, I understand the villain's broken story as why he or she decided to pick a path of hate or power. They wanted to erase everyone, to erase their pain that they had so they wouldn't become like them. And that's very much true. You see that sort of thing. McCaffrey, Martone. I think about this a lot. I actually put a lot more thought into this topic than I think. I expect that sort of thing. Tim Etimery. I articulated this in my head, but I'm surprised that YouTube recommended me this video. Perhaps the AI algorithm is understanding me better than I previously thought. All hail the algorithm, right? Also, we got another one from McCaffrey. Actually, I was planning on making a video about this, and you covered many of the points I was thinking about. Great video. And, oh, shoot, I'm going to have to watch that. They actually sent me the link for their video, so I'm going to have to look into that. Great video. I was thinking about this topic. Wanted to see if anyone made a video about it. I did. Imran Khan X, villain have more dynamic and sometimes straight up relatable. Yeah, that's what I was saying in the video too. Hero is always viewed as the perfect being. The hero is more of an ideal figure that we want to be, but is realistically far away from the imperfect being like us. I.e., we'll never be able to see ourselves become that hero. I.e., I will never be Superman. I'm closer to becoming somebody like Batman, but even still, I will never become Superman. He's not even an ideal representation of what human can be. We're supposed to relate more to his ideals, his beliefs, than his actual physical stature and strength, because obviously he's Superman, not human. Kazamizu says doubling the resources only became a possibility after he gathered the gauntlet. I would like to argue that by that point in time, the idea of trauma of having the population had become greatly ingrained in his mind. I would like to believe that he had believed that too. Sort of, it has to be done and done right, sort of thing. You know, like it has to be done. What's the phrase? Investment fallacy. You know, I've put so much into this already. I have to follow through. And part of me thinks that like there's no way he didn't think of doubling the resources and whatnot of the world, of the universe, galaxy, everything, because it just seems far too obvious a solution to have just completely missed it. Battlemaster, I think the heroes are unrealistic. Like in history, they are faces to the villains, Genghis Khan, you know, all the folks so on. But the heroes of history are thousands who fought against tyranny. And that in itself is true. Like in shows, movies, television shows, comic books, cartoons, it's always a singular person or a small group of people who are responsible for turning the tide of history, turning against the enemy and overthrowing it. But in reality, in where we exist as people, it's armies, it's soldiers, it's firefighters, police, it's common everyday people on the street just seeing something wrong and stepping up and saying, no, I won't take that. And that in and of itself is interesting because you probably heard the phrase if a person is a terrorist to one person or a freedom fighter to another. And that is one thing I find more interesting about reality as opposed to like comics and whatnot, because it's always portrayed as our heroes are the good guys, even though in some instances, what was that one comic I read? It was a little while ago, but they portrayed this group of kids standing up against gun control and gun lobby and whatnot. But the way the artists and the writer portrayed their characters is, even in my mind, they portrayed their characters as terrorists, as villains, as opposed to, you know, actually being the good people that they wanted to portray them as. And sometimes that sort of thing is right. The author probably sees his characters as the freedom fighters that he wants them to be, but unintentionally portrayed them in unsympathetic ways, you know. And to me, it came across as they were villains, even though apparently he intended them, or they intended them. I don't actually know who the writer was, sorry. They intended them to be, I can't even remember the name of the series. It was a series of comic books, teenage heroes after a school shooting gain powers and whatnot. Yeah, I won't remember it. But anyway, and the whole freedom fighter versus terrorist ideal. There's always a dichotomy there. Somebody's always going to see themselves as a hero, but in another person's story, they are the villain. Interesting topic. But anyway, I wanted to address this because next week I want to do a video on why do we love villains. And now that one's going to take a little bit of a different turn than this one. Whereas today we were talking about why do we like the villains, i.e. why do we agree with them, why do we see them and understand them, and whatnot. And often it comes down to we see them as humanity. We see them more representative of humans than we do our heroes. And next week I want to address the idea of why do we love them. And of course this doesn't apply to everybody, but if you stay too long on Twitter, you will see a lot of it go by, especially with, say, Resident Evil Village lately, where they have been talking about Lady Dimitrescu, and whatnot. And there was she's just the latest example of that. In Borderlands, it was Handsome Jack, in a lot of other things. And even in real life, there are serial killer groupies and that sort of thing. I want to address that and talk more about that in the next video. But anyway, apart from all that, that's going to be it for me for today. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of The Community Show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you did, please don't poke that like button for me. If you'd like to see more from me, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And of course, as always, you are more than welcome to leave a comment in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Hey man, I can if I can. You know all that jazz. And tune in next time as we talk about more things. And until then, good night.